I was 11 years old the day I watched my father die, crawled out from under his bed where his blood pooled around my hands, stole a notebook full of drawings that would destroy men in suits I'd never met, and ran straight into the arms of the most dangerous man in 3 states, a killer with dead eyes who used to work for the same cartel that murdered him. That's not how stories are supposed to start in a place like San Miguel de las Flores, where we didn't even lock our doors at night. But then again, I used to think the world was good. I used to think a lot of stupid things. Let me tell you how I learned better. My name is Miguel Santos, and before that Tuesday in August, the worst thing that had ever happened to me was losing my lucky marble in the schoolyard. I cried for 2 hours. My mother held me while I sobbed into her apron that smelled like cinnamon and washing soap. My father, Papa, who everyone said was the bravest man in town because he asked questions no one else dared to ask, he sat me down that evening and drew me a new marble in his notebook. Not just any marble, but one with swirls of blue and gold that looked like it held entire galaxies inside. "See, Mijo," he said, his pencil moving across the page with those quick, confident strokes I love to watch. "Sometimes what we lose comes back to us in a different form, better, more meaningful." I didn't understand then what he was really telling me. The notebook, the one I would later clutch against my chest as I ran through the cornfields with gunshots echoing behind me, was always with him. Brown leather, worn soft at the corners, held together with a rubber band because the spine had broken years ago. Inside were drawings, hundreds of them, birds and flowers and geometric patterns that seemed random but weren't. I know that now. I didn't know it when I watched him sketch by lamplight every night, his reading glasses perched on his nose, his journalist's notepad pushed aside in favor of this secret hobby. "Why do you draw so much, Papa?" I asked him once. He looked up, and something flickered across his face, something I was too young to recognize as fear wearing a mask of tenderness. "Because some truths are too dangerous to write in words, Miguel, but they still need to be told." I thought he was being poetic. Adults did that sometimes, said things that sounded important but didn't mean anything real. Like when Senora Martinez told me I had an old soul because I preferred reading to playing soccer with the other boys. What did that even mean? Souls don't have ages. But Papa's drawings did mean something. They meant everything. They meant our house would burn. They meant my mother would die begging them to leave me alone. They meant I would become someone I don't recognize when I look in mirrors now. San Miguel de las Flores was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody, where the biggest excitement was Sunday Mass, and the annual harvest festival where Señor Ruiz always drank too much pulque and sang off-key until his wife dragged him home. We had one main street, 3 churches, a school that went up to 6th grade, and a cantina that I wasn't allowed near but could hear the laughter spilling from on Saturday nights. We were poor, but the good kind of poor, the kind where you don't have much, but neither does anyone else, so it doesn't feel like losing. My mother sold embroidered tablecloths at the market. My father wrote articles for a regional newspaper about local politics, water rights, missing persons, boring adult stuff that I never paid attention to. "Your father is very brave," my teacher, Maestra Dolores, told me once, her hand on my shoulder, her voice pitched low like she was sharing a secret. "He writes about things that make powerful people uncomfortable." "Is that good?" I asked. She smiled, but it was sad. "It's necessary." I didn't know what that meant either. The morning of the day everything ended started like every other morning. My mom made me eggs with salsa verde. Papa read his newspaper and muttered about corruption in the governor's office. I worried about my math test and whether Rosa Medina would finally notice I existed during recess. These were my concerns. These were the boundaries of my universe. Small, safe, stupid. At breakfast, Papa was distracted. He kept glancing at his notebook, which sat beside his coffee cup. Once, I saw him touch it like you'd touch something precious you're about to lose. Mijo, he said suddenly, if anything ever happens to me. Carlos, my mother's voice was sharp, don't talk like that in front of him. He needs to know. He needs to finish his breakfast and go to school. They stared at each other across the table, having one of those adult conversations that happens without words. Papa's jaw clenched. Mama's eyes were shining too bright. Okay, Papa said finally. He turned to me, forced a smile. Listen to your mother, Mijo. Always listen to your mother. I nodded, my mouth full of eggs, already thinking about recess. That was the last normal conversation I ever had with my father. School was school. I got a 72 on my math test, which wasn't great but wasn't terrible. Rosa Medina didn't notice I existed. At lunch, my best friend Tomás bet me I couldn't eat 6 chili peppers in a row, and I did it. And my mouth burned so bad I thought I'd die, but I won 5 pesos and felt like a king. You're crazy, Miguel. Tomás laughed, handing over the crumpled bills. I'm not crazy, I'm brave. There's a difference. We argued about it the whole walk home, the sun beating down on our heads, dust rising from our feet with each step. The world smelled like dried corn and distant rain. Everything was exactly as it should be. I said goodbye to Tomás at the corner where our paths split, him toward the north side where his family grew beans, me toward the center of town where our little house sat behind Senora Martinez's mercantile. See you tomorrow, Tomás called back. See you tomorrow, I echoed. But there wouldn't be a tomorrow, not the kind we were imagining. I walked the last 2 blocks slowly, trying to make the day last, because once I got home, Mama would make me do homework before I could go outside again. The street was quiet. Too quiet, I realize now. No children playing. No women chatting in doorways. No dogs barking. The silence should have warned me. I opened our front door calling, "Mama, I'm home," the way I did every day. The smell hit me first. Copper and smoke and something else. Something wrong that my 11-year-old brain couldn't name but my body recognized. My stomach clenched. My hand froze on the doorknob. Mama. The living room looked normal. Mama's embroidery hoop sat on the table, a half-finished peacock spreading its tail across white linen. Papa's newspaper lay folded on his chair. The photographs on the wall, our family at the beach 3 years ago, my first communion. Mama and Papa's wedding, all stared down at me like nothing was wrong. But something was wrong. Mama, my voice came out smaller now. A sound from the bedroom, a shuffling, a wet cough. I moved toward it the way you move in nightmares, when your legs don't work right and the air feels thick as water. The bedroom door was half open. I pushed it wider. My mother was on the floor beside the bed. There was so much blood. Miguel, her voice was barely a whisper, hide. I didn't understand. I stood there frozen, my backpack still on my shoulders, my math test with the 72 written in red pen folded in my pocket. Baby under the bed now. The way she said it, the command in it, the terror, finally broke through my shock. I dropped to my knees and scrambled under the bed. The space was cramped and dark and smelled like the mothballs Mama kept in the dresser. Don't come out, she whispered. No matter what you hear, don't come out until they're gone. Who, Mama's who? Quiet. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Through the gap between the bedskirt and the floor, I could see her. She was trying to pull herself toward the door, leaving a trail of red behind her. Her hands were shaking. There was a hole in her dress, right below her ribs, and the fabric around it was soaked dark. Mama. S-H-H-H-H. Footsteps in the living room, heavy boots on our wooden floor. Where is it? A man's voice, rough like he smoked too much. We know he left it here. I don't know what you're talking about. My mother's voice, stronger now, defiant. A laugh. You married him. You knew what he was doing. He was a journalist. He wrote about crop yields and municipal budgets. He wrote about routes. He wrote about names. He drew pictures that a very important person doesn't want seen. I don't have anything, search the house, take whatever you want. Another set of footsteps, lighter, a second person. The boy, the second voice said, younger than the first. Where's the boy? My blood turned to ice. At school, Mama said quickly. He doesn't come home for another hour. It's 3:30. He has soccer practice. The lie hung in the air. Check the other rooms, the rough voice said. Footsteps moving away, footsteps coming closer. I watched my mother drag herself the last few feet to the door and pull it shut. I heard the click of the lock. Useless, so useless, but she was trying. Listen to me very carefully, she said, her voice pressed against the door meant for me. There's a notebook, your father's notebook. It's in the kitchen in the flour canister. Get it. Run to the North Road. Find. The door exploded inward. The lock, that useless lock, splintered. Found you, the rough voice said. What happened next happens in my nightmares every single night. I see it when I close my eyes. I see it when I'm awake. I will see it until I die and maybe after. Please, my mother begged. He's just a boy, he doesn't know anything. Then he won't miss this. The gunshot was so loud in our small house. My mother's hand, stretched toward the bed where I hid, twitched once. Then stopped. I don't know how long I lay under that bed. Time didn't work right anymore. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. I heard them search the house. Heard them tear apart Papa's desk, rip books from shelves, smash the china cabinet where Mama kept her mother's teacups. The notebook isn't here. Keep looking. The husband's dead too. Found him in the plaza. They dumped the body in the fountain. Papa was dead. The words didn't compute. My brain rejected them the way your body rejects poison. Torch it, send a message. What about the kid? What kid? You see a kid. A pause, no. Then there's no kid. Footsteps leaving, the front door slamming, the smell of gasoline. That smell finally made me move. I crawled out from under the bed, my hands sliding in my mother's blood, my knees soaked with it. I didn't look at her face. I couldn't. If I looked, it would be real, and I wasn't ready for it to be real. The smoke was already starting, wisps of it curling under the bedroom door. The kitchen, Mama said the kitchen, the flour canister. I ran, my shoes leaving red footprints on our floor. The living room was destroyed, our life scattered and broken. I could hear the fire now, a hungry crackling from the back of the house. The flour canister sat on the counter where it always sat, white ceramic with blue flowers. My hands shook as I opened it. Flour puffed up, and there, wrapped in plastic, was the notebook. I grabbed it, I ran. Behind me, our house. Whole childhood, every memory, every safe thing began to burn. Part 2, The Wolf and the Lamb. I ran north like Mama said, through yards and alleyways, the notebook clutched against my chest. Behind me, I could hear shouting. Someone had seen the smoke. Soon everyone would see it. Soon everyone would know. Miguel Santos is an orphan now. Miguel Santos has nobody. Miguel Santos is alone. The thought made my legs move faster even though they were already trembling, even though I could barely breathe. The North Road led out of town, into the cornfields that stretched forever. I plunged into them without thinking, the stalks towering over me, their leaves rustling and scraping against my arms. I ran until my lungs burned and my vision went spotty. I ran until I couldn't run anymore, and then I collapsed between the rows, gasping, crying, my face pressed into dirt that smelled like earth and growing things and nothing like blood. I don't know how long I lay there. The sun moved lower, the shadows grew longer. Eventually, I sat up and looked at the notebook I'd been clutching so hard the leather had left imprints in my palms. I opened it with shaking hands. The drawings were beautiful, Papa had always been talented, but these were different from the little sketches he'd done for me. These were precise, detailed, coded. A map of our region, but with strange symbols at certain intersections. A series of dates and corresponding geometric patterns. Lists of numbers that could have been coordinates or times or amounts. Birds, dozens of birds, each species carefully rendered. Each one perched in a different location on what I slowly realized was a representation of the state highway system. He'd hidden information in art. He'd turned data into beauty. And men had killed him for it. Men had killed Mama. Men had burned our house. I was crying again, tears dropping onto the pages, smudging a falcon perched near what I thought might be the border crossing at Nuevo Laredo. That's pretty good work. The voice behind me nearly stopped my heart. I spun around, scrambling backward, the notebook flying from my hands. A man stood at the edge of the cornfield watching me. Tall, lean, wearing dusty jeans and a dark t-shirt that had seen better days. His face was weathered, creased with lines that could have been from sun or violence or both. His eyes were the color of stone, flat and cold and assessing. But it was his hands I noticed most, scarred knuckles, a missing fingertip on his left hand, and the easy way they hung at his sides ready. These were hands that had hurt people. "Don't run," he said, his voice calm. "I'm not going to hurt you." That's what they always say in movies before they hurt someone. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You watch a lot of movies." "Enough. Smart kid." He moved closer slowly, the way you approach a spooked animal. I watched him, calculating. I was fast. Maybe I could. "You won't outrun me," he said, reading my thoughts. "I'm faster and I know these fields, but I'm not here to chase you." "Then what do you want?" He nodded at the notebook which lay in the dirt between us. "Same thing they wanted. Difference is, I'm not going to kill a child to get it." "Are you going to kill me after you get it?" "No." "Why should I believe you?" He considered the question seriously, like I was an adult worth reasoning with instead of a terrified kid covered in his mother's blood. "Because if I wanted you dead, you'd be dead already. Because I've spent the last 3 weeks tracking your father's information and the last 3 hours tracking the men who killed him. Because," he paused, something shifting in those dead eyes, "because I knew your father, and he asked me to keep you safe if anything happened to him." "You're lying." "Your father's name was Carlos Miguel Santos. He was 38 years old. He wrote for El Diario Fronterizo. 5 years ago, he wrote an article about missing journalists that got him noticed by the Zetas cartel. They gave him a choice: work for them by looking the other way or die. He chose a third option. He started documenting everything he saw, everything he heard, in coded drawings that he planned to send to the federal authorities. He contacted me 2 weeks ago because I used to work for the Attorney General's office before I got tired of watching criminals go free while good men died. I stared at him. "You're a cop." "Was not anymore." "What are you now?" "Complicated." I didn't move. Behind us, the sky was turning orange and pink, the kind of beautiful sunset I used to watch with Mama from our front porch. She'd tell me about the colors, magenta and coral and amber, teaching me words I'd never use in regular life. Those days were gone. Everything was gone. "My mother's dead," I said, and saying it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. My voice cracked. "She told me to run. She told me to find." I stopped. "Find who?" She didn't finish. They killed her before she could finish. The man's jaw tightened. He looked away toward the horizon, and when he looked back, something in his face had changed, gotten harder. "She was going to tell you to find me. Javier Morno. Your father gave me his contingency plan. If he died, I was supposed to get you and that notebook to safety." "Where's safety?" I asked, and I hated how young I sounded, how scared. "I'm still working on that part." Javier didn't try to touch me or comfort me or do any of the things adults usually do when kids are upset. He just picked up the notebook, brushed the dirt off it, and held it out to me. "You should carry it, it's yours now." "I don't want it." "Doesn't matter, it's still yours." I took it, stuffed it in my backpack next to my math test with the 72 on it. A different lifetime. A different Miguel who worried about grades and girls. "There's a vehicle half a kilometer north," Javier said. "We need to move before they expand the search grid." "Search grid?" "They're looking for you. They know someone took the notebook. Won't take them long to figure out it was you." "How do you know all this?" "I was watching your house." The words made my skin crawl. "You watched them kill my mother." "No," his voice went flat. "I got there after. I was following your father. They took him at the plaza, and by the time I realized what was happening, they were already at your house. I couldn't." He stopped. "I couldn't save her, I'm sorry." I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to ask why he didn't try, why he wasn't faster, why my parents had to die and he got to live. But the words stuck in my throat, hard and painful as stones. "Can we trust him?" I asked instead. Javier looked confused. "Who?" "You. Can I trust you?" For the first time, something almost like respect crossed his face. "Honestly, I don't know, kid. I've done things you can't imagine. Killed people who probably didn't deserve it. Worked for men who called themselves law enforcement but were just criminals with badges. I'm not a good person." "But you're not a bad person." "I'm not sure there's a difference anymore." We looked at each other across the cornfield as the last light drained from the sky. "My name's Miguel," I said finally. "I know. If you try to hurt me, I'll kill you." His eyebrow rose. "With what?" "I'll figure something out." This time he actually smiled. Small, sad, but real. "Okay, Miguel Santos, fair enough." Part 3: The Pack. Javier's vehicle was a beat-up Ford pickup that had seen better decades. The passenger seat was covered in fast food wrappers and empty water bottles. He swept them into the footwell without apologizing. "Seat belt," he said. I buckled up, hugging my backpack to my chest. The notebook inside felt heavy, like it had absorbed all the weight of what it cost to obtain it. We drove north through the darkness. No headlights. Javier navigated by moonlight and memory, the truck bouncing over dirt roads that weren't really roads, just paths worn into the land by people who needed to move unseen. "Where are we going?" I asked after an hour of silence. "Safe house, about 40 kilometers from here." "Whose safe house?" "Friends, sort of." "Sort of friends?" "People I trust not to kill us, mostly." "That's not reassuring." "Yeah, well, welcome to the rest of your life." I looked out the window at the passing darkness. Somewhere back there was San Miguel de las Flores. Was our house still burning? Had anyone found Mama? Would anyone come to her funeral? Would anyone come to mine when these, sort of friends, decided I wasn't worth keeping alive? "Stop thinking so loud," Javier said. "You're making me nervous." "I'm not thinking loud." "You're spiraling, I can hear it." "You can't hear thinking." "I can when it's that loud." Despite everything, despite the blood on my clothes and the death behind us and the uncertain death ahead, I almost laughed. Almost. We drove for another 2 hours, the landscape changing from farmland to something wilder, more desolate. Hills rose around us, scrubby and hostile. The moon painted everything silver and shadow. Finally, Javier pulled off what barely qualified as a road and navigated through a narrow canyon. At the end of it, hidden among rocks and sparse trees, sat a compound. That's the only word for it, not a house. Not a ranch. A compound, high walls, security lights, the kind of place that said "stay away" in every possible language. Javier killed the engine. "Listen carefully," he said. "The men inside are ex-federal police. They left the force for different reasons, but they all left because they still had consciences. They're good at violence, bad at following rules, and they won't hurt you unless you give them reason to. What would be a reason? Stealing from them, lying to them, threatening them. I'm 11, how am I going to threaten them? You'd be surprised what desperate people can do. He got out of the truck. I followed, my legs stiff from the drive, my whole body aching with exhaustion that went bone deep. The gate opened before we reached it. A man stepped out, older than Javier, maybe 50, built like he'd spent his life moving heavy things. His face was a road map of scars. "Javier," he said. His voice was rough, textured like gravel. "You bring us a guest." "I bring us a problem," Javier corrected. "This is Miguel Santos, Carlos's son." The scarred man's expression shifted. "Ah, so the journalist's dead." "Along with his wife. And the boy has the documentation. In his backpack." They were talking about me like I wasn't there. I hated it. "I'm standing right here," I said. The scarred man looked down at me and something in his expression softened just slightly. "So you are, I'm Ramos. You can call me that or sir. I don't much care which. You hungry?" I was starving. I couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten. "Yes, sir." "Come on then." The compound was bigger inside than it looked from outside. A main building with individual rooms branching off a central common area. A kitchen that smelled like coffee and cooked meat. A training area with punching bags and weights. And men, 6 of them, including Ramos and Javier. They looked like what they were, weapons with faces. I sat at the kitchen table while Ramos heated up beans and rice and chicken. The other men drifted in one by one, drawn by curiosity or boredom or both. "This the kid?" one of them asked, tall, indigenous features, a knife scar running from his temple to his jaw. "This is Miguel," Javier confirmed, "Carlos Santos's son. The journalist who pissed off the Zetas." "That's the one. Kid's got his father's balls coming here." "Didn't have much choice," I muttered, too tired to be polite. The scarred man Torres, I'd learn his name later, grinned. "Got his mouth too, I like him." Ramos set a plate in front of me. "Eat, then sleep. We'll figure out what to do with you in the morning." I ate mechanically, tasting nothing. The men talked around me, their voices washing over me like water over stones. "Can't keep him here. Notebook's worth millions to the right people. Or a bullet to the wrong people. Just a kid. Kids grow up fast in this world." I finished eating. Ramos showed me to a small room with a cot and a blanket, no windows, one door. A cell basically, but a comfortable one. "Bathrooms down the hall," Ramos said. "Door locks from the inside, but I have a key. Use it if you need to, but know that I can get in." "Are you going to?" "Not unless you're dying or the compound's under attack. Those are my options." His scarred face creased into something almost like a smile. "Welcome to the revolution, kid." He left. The door clicked shut. I was alone for the first time since I'd found Mama. I should have cried. I should have broken down, screamed, punched the walls until my knuckles bled. Instead, I took out the notebook and opened it to a random page. A hummingbird, iridescent and perfect, hovering over a flower that looked like it might be near the Monterey region. Numbers hidden in the petals, coordinates in the wings. My father had drawn this. His hand had moved across this paper. He'd been alive when he created this beauty. And now he was dead because of it. I traced the hummingbird with my finger, careful not to smudge the lines. "I'll finish what you started," I whispered to the drawing, to my father, to the ghosts that would haunt me forever. "I promise." It was a stupid promise. I was 11. I didn't know what finishing it even meant. But I meant it anyway. I woke to raised voices. For a disorienting moment, I thought I was home, that Mama and Papa were arguing in the kitchen about money or politics or what to have for dinner. Then I remembered. The voices weren't my parents were dead. I was in a compound with men who killed people for a living. The voices were arguing about me. I pressed my ear to the door. Too dangerous to keep him. That was a voice I didn't recognize yet, higher pitched than the others, nervous. More dangerous to let him go, Javier calm, certain. He's a liability. The cartel knows about him. They'll track him here. They'll track the notebook. Doesn't matter where the kid is. So we take the notebook and dump the kid. Silent, heavy, and dangerous. Say that again. Javier's voice had gone cold. Say that again and see what happens. I'm just being practical. You're being a coward. The kid's father died protecting information that could bring down half the cartel operations in the Northeast. His mother died protecting him. We're not going to spit on that sacrifice by dumping an 11-year-old orphan. Then what's your plan? Adopt him, teach him to play catch. My plan is to keep him alive and use what his father died for. That notebook is intelligence gold. With it, we can plan operations that actually matter. Ramos's voice cut through. The boy's awake. The conversation stopped. A moment later, my door opened. Ramos stood there, backlit by the morning sun streaming through windows I couldn't see. You want breakfast before or after you tell us what you're planning to do? I blinked. I'm not planning anything. Bullshit. I've been doing this long enough to spot a revenge plot brewing. I met his eyes. Is it that obvious? Kid, you're radiating it like heat off asphalt. Come on. The kitchen table had become a war room. The men were gathered around it, and in the center, open to a page showing an elaborately drawn peacock with numbers hidden in its tail feathers, was my father's notebook. I moved toward it protectively. That's mine. It's yours, Javier agreed, but it's also evidence, intelligence, a weapon. It's drawings. It's coded information about every major drug route from here to Tamaulipas. Your father was documenting the Zetas' entire northern operation. I looked at the peacock. I'd seen Papa draw this one. He'd spent 3 evenings on it, adjusting the eyes, perfecting the feathers. I'd asked him why he was spending so much time on a bird. Beauty takes patience, he'd said, and sometimes beauty is the only way to hide ugly truths. What do the numbers mean? I asked. Torres, the man with the knife scar, leaned forward. Best we can tell, dates and shipment amounts. This peacock, it's sitting on a branch that corresponds to Highway 85. The tail feathers point to times. The eyes show weights. Weights of what? Cocaine, heroin, meth, pick your poison. I looked at the other pages they'd laid out. A falcon, a owl, a cardinal, each one beautiful, each one damning. My father was an artist, I said quietly, not a spy. He was both, Javier said, and he was braver than most men I've known. Brave men die. Yes, they do. The truth of it sat between us, hard and undeniable. So what happens now? I asked. You use the notebook to do what? Raid drug shipments, fight the cartel. Something like that, Ramos said. And me. You stay here, you stay safe, you stay out of the way. No. The word came out before I could stop it. All the men looked at me. No, I repeated, stronger now. I'm not staying out of the way. They killed my parents. They burned my house. They took everything. I'm not hiding while you fight them. You're 11, the nervous-voiced man, I learned his name was Gilberto, said. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. Javier studied me, those stone-colored eyes unreadable. You want revenge? Yes. Revenge gets people killed. I know, I watched it happen. You're not a soldier, kid. Then teach me. The words hung in the air. Torres laughed, sharp and surprised. Teach him, he's a child. So were we once, Ramos said quietly, and life taught us fast. This is insane. This is war, Javier interrupted. And the kid's already in it whether we like it or not. The cartel won't stop looking for him. They can't afford to. He's a loose end and they tie up loose ends with bullets. So we train him. Gilberto sounded horrified. We prepare him, Javier corrected. We make sure if the worst happens, he's got a fighting chance. They argued for another hour, but I could tell the decision had already been made. These men, these violent, damaged, dangerous men, were going to keep me alive. And I was going to learn from them. My education began that afternoon. First rule, Ramos said, leading me to the training area. Everything you think you know about fighting, forget it. Movies lie, heroes die. The only fight worth fighting is the one you walk away from. Then why learn to fight at all? Because sometimes you don't get to walk away. He handed me a practice knife, wooden, weighted to feel real. A knife is intimate. It requires you to be close to your enemy, close enough to smell their sweat, hear their breathing, feel them die. Can you do that? I looked at the wooden blade in my hand. I don't know. Good, never trust someone who answers that question too quickly. He spent 3 hours teaching me how to hold the knife, how to move with it, how to protect myself. I was clumsy, slow, weak. I'd never been athletic. I'd been the kid who read books during recess. But I was also the kid who'd crawled through my mother's blood. That changed things. Again, Ramos said, and I lunged again, and he sidestepped again, and I fell again. You're thinking too much. How do I think less? Stop trying to be smart, be instinct. But I'd spent my whole life being smart. Smart was safe. Smart meant good grades and teachers who smiled and a future that looked like university and maybe a job in the city. That future was ashes now. I can't, I gasped, hands on my knees, exhausted. Then you'll die. The bluntness of it shocked me. I looked up at his scarred face. The cartel doesn't care that you're 11, he continued. They don't care that you're scared or that you miss your parents or that you don't know what you're doing. They care about that notebook and they'll put a bullet in your head to get it. So you can learn or you can die. Choose. I chose to learn. Days blurred into weeks. My world became routines I'd never imagined. Wake before dawn, run 5 kilometers through the hills, practice knife work with Ramos, study the notebook with Javier, learn hand-to-hand combat with Tors. Help with maintenance around the compound, collapse into bed too tired to dream. Except I still dreamed. Every night I watched Mama die. Every night I hid under that bed. Every night I failed to save her. Javier found me one night, 3 weeks in, sitting outside in the dark. Can't sleep. I shook my head. He sat beside me, silent for a long moment. Finally, I see them too. Who? The people I couldn't save. The people I killed. The people I should have been fast enough or smart enough or brave enough to help. They visit me every night. Does it get better? No, you just get used to it. The honesty was brutal. I appreciated it. Adults had lied to me my whole life. Little lies, kind lies, lies meant to protect. I didn't want protection anymore. I wanted truth. Tell me about my father, I said. The real story, not the version for kids. Javier leaned back, looking at the stars. Carlos was the best kind of idealist. The kind who understood the world was broken but still believed it could be fixed. He started documenting the cartel 5 years ago, after 3 of his colleagues disappeared. Everyone knew that Zetas had taken them. Everyone knew they were dead, but no one would say it out loud. Why not? Fear. The Zetas don't just kill you. They kill your family, your friends, everyone you've ever spoken to. They make examples that last generations. So Papa was stupid. No, he was brave. There's a difference. Brave people die. Everyone dies. Brave people choose what they die for. I thought about that. What would you die for? He looked at me, those dead eyes suddenly not so dead. I'm still figuring that out. 2 months after the massacre, Javier started teaching me the notebook's code. Your father was clever, he said, spreading pages across the kitchen table. He used a substitution cipher layered over visual misdirection. The birds aren't random. Each species represents a different organization. Falcons for Zetas, owls for Gulf Cartel, cardinals for local police who take bribes. How do you know? We've been cross-referencing the drawings with known operations. The patterns match. Look, this falcon is perched at kilometer marker 42 on Highway 85. 3 weeks ago, on the date hidden in the tail feathers, the Zetas moved 10 million in cocaine through that exact point. I studied the drawing. My father had spent an evening on this falcon, getting the eyes just right. Had he known when he drew it that it would get him killed? There's more, Javier continued. The geometric patterns, the ones that look like decorative borders, they're maps, not geographic maps, relationship maps, who reports to whom, which politicians are bought, which cops are dirty. That's why they want it so badly. This notebook could dismantle their entire operation. It could put 50 men behind bars, maybe more. It could save hundreds of lives. Or get more people killed. Javier didn't argue. We both knew I was right. So what do we do with it? I asked. That's the question your father died trying to answer. He didn't trust the federal police, too much corruption. Didn't trust the military, same problem. He was trying to find someone clean, someone brave enough to use this information. Did he find anyone? He found me. Are you clean? No, but I'm angry. Sometimes that's enough. Part 5, the first mission. 3 months in, Ramos declared me not completely useless. It was the closest thing to praise I'd gotten. Kids got instincts, he told the others over dinner. Not trained, not refined, but the raw material's there. He's still small, Gilberto pointed out. Weak. I'm sitting right here, I muttered. Torres grinned. He's got spirit though, stupid spirit but spirit. What's stupid about it? I demanded. You think being willing to die makes you dangerous. It doesn't, it makes you dead. Then what makes you dangerous? Being willing to live. Being willing to do whatever it takes, no matter how ugly, no matter how much it costs, and still get up the next morning. I didn't understand then, I do now. That night Javier came to my room. Get dressed, tactical clothes, dark colors, we're going out. My heart raced. Where? Your first mission, call it a field test. I'm ready. You're not, but you'll learn. We drove for 2 hours, Javier and me and Torres, into territory I didn't recognize. The landscape grew more urban, scattered houses becoming neighborhoods, becoming a small city. There's a warehouse on the east side, Javier explained as we drove. The Zetas use it as a collection point. Every Friday night they consolidate cash from the week's operations. Small bills mostly, drug money from street dealers. How much? Usually around 200,000. I whistled. It was more money than I'd ever imagined. We're going to rob them, I asked. We're going to observe. You're going to watch how a real operation works. You stay in the vehicle, you keep your head down, and you learn. That's it, I just watch. That's it. But of course it wasn't. We parked 3 blocks from the warehouse, in an alley that smelled like rotting garbage and piss. Torres handed me a radio earpiece. You hear anything that sounds like trouble, you call it in. Don't try to be a hero. Don't leave the truck. Just watch and learn. They disappeared into the darkness, moving like shadows, and I was alone. The waiting was terrible. I watched the clock on the dashboard tick forward, 10 minutes, 20, 40. My imagination conjured every possible disaster. They'd been caught. They were being tortured. They were dead, and I was next. Then voices on the radio. Javier, 2 guards outside. Torres has the north approach. Torres in position. More silence, then a sound like a bag of wet sand hitting concrete, a grunt, the radio crackled. Package secured, returning to vehicle. They were back in 5 minutes, carrying a duffel bag that clinked softly. Torres was bleeding from a cut over his eye. Javier's knuckles were split. "What happened?" I asked as Javier started the truck. "Happened," Torres said, pressing his sleeve to his forehead. "Past tense, don't worry about it." We drove in silence for 20 minutes, back roads and farm paths, until we were far enough away that Javier finally relaxed. "How much?" Torres asked. Javier opened the duffel, stacks of bills rubber-banded and labeled. 180,000, roughly. "Good haul." "What are you going to do with it?" I asked. "Fund operations, buy equipment, pay sources. This is war, kid. War costs money." "You're using their money against them." "Poetic right." I looked at the blood on Torres' face, the split skin on Javier's knuckles. Was it worth it? Ask me when we've actually accomplished something. The missions continued. Once a week, sometimes twice, Javier and the others would go out. Sometimes I went with them. Sometimes I stayed at the compound. Every time I learned something new. I learned that violence is loud and messy and nothing like movies. I learned that men beg when they're scared, that they cry for mothers and lovers and God. I learned that killing someone changes you in ways you can't predict. I learned that last lesson the hard way. It was my 4th month at the compound. We'd planned a raid on a safe house where the Zetas were holding a family, father, mother, 2 daughters, whose crime was refusing to let the cartel use their restaurant for money laundering. "This is a rescue," Javier briefed us. "Priority 1, get the family out. Priority 2, gather any intelligence we find. Priority 3, minimize casualties." "What about the guards?" Gilberto asked. "They made their choices." We went in at midnight. I was supposed to stay with the vehicle again, but when we arrived, the situation had changed. There were more guards than expected, more guns, more risk. "Abort," Torres suggested. Javier shook his head. "Families inside, we don't leave them." "Then we need a distraction." They all looked at me. "No," Javier said immediately. "He's small, fast. He could draw them off the north side." "He's a kid." "He's our best option." They argued in harsh whispers while I sat in the back of the truck, my heart hammering. "I'll do it," I said. "Miguel, you said this was a rescue. You said priority 1 was the family. Let me help." Javier's face was stone. "You run, you draw them off. And the very second you're clear, you hide, you understand. You hide and you don't come out until I signal you." "I understand." I didn't understand. How could I? I was 12 years old and I was about to put myself between violent men and their prey. The plan was simple. I would run along the fence line making noise, drawing attention. The guards would chase me. While they were distracted, Javier and the others would breach the house and extract the family. Simple. Stupid. I ran. Behind me shouts in Spanish, "Hoy detente." I didn't stop. I ran the way Ramos had taught me, steady pace, controlled breathing, awareness of terrain. Behind me 2 sets of footsteps, 2 guards. I led them around the corner, into the alley we'd scouted earlier, the one with the dumpster and the fire escape and the 3rd guard stepped out in front of me. I hadn't known he was there. Intel failure, bad luck, didn't matter. He was there and he had a gun and I had nowhere to go. "Stupid kid," he said in Spanish, raising the weapon. "Should have stayed home." I had 2 seconds to make a choice. Run and get shot in the back. Surrender and hope for mercy I knew wouldn't come. Or fight. I still had the practice knife Ramos had given me. Wooden, weighted, useless against a gun. Except I threw it. Not at the man, at the gun. It hit his hand. Not hard enough to hurt, but enough to surprise him, to make him flinch, to give me 1 second. I closed the distance. Everything Ramos had taught me came flooding back. Low center of gravity, use your size as an advantage, go for vulnerable points. I drove my shoulder into his stomach. He stumbled back. The gun fell. We both dove for it. I got there first. I'd never held a real gun before. It was heavier than I expected, warm from his holster, smelling like oil and metal. He lunged at me. I pulled the trigger. The sound was enormous. The recoil nearly broke my wrist. The man fell backward, a flower of red blooming across his chest. He looked surprised. Then he looked dead. I stood there frozen, the gun still raised, my hand shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. "Miguel," Javier's voice distant. "Miguel, move." I moved. The other 2 guards had heard the shot. They were coming. I ran, my legs mechanical, my brain still processing what I'd done. I killed someone. I killed someone. I killed someone. The thought repeated like a broken record, drowning out everything else. The shouts behind me, the gunfire, Javier calling my name. I made it back to the truck. I climbed in. I sat there with the gun still in my hands, staring at nothing. The family was saved. We got them out. 3 hours later, we dropped them at a shelter run by nuns who didn't ask questions. "You did good," Javier said, but his voice was heavy. I couldn't respond. My mouth didn't work right. Back at the compound, Ramos took one look at me and nodded. "Go clean up, get some sleep." I went to my room. I washed my hands even though there was no blood on them. I lay on my cot and stared at the ceiling. I was 12 years old, and I'd killed a man. My mother had packed my lunches with heart-shaped sandwiches. My father had drawn me marbles that held galaxies. And I'd killed a man. Somewhere in the transformation from Miguel who cried over marbles to Miguel who held a smoking gun, I'd lost something essential. I just wasn't sure yet if I'd ever get it back. Part 6. The boy who used to be. The nightmares got worse after that first kill. Now it wasn't just Mama dying. It was the guard too, falling backward again and again, that surprised look frozen on his face. Sometimes in the dreams they merged, and it was Mama I was shooting, or Papa, or Tomás from school, or Rosa Medina, or everyone I'd ever known. I'd wake up gasping, sweating, my hands reaching for a gun that wasn't there. Javier started sleeping in the chair outside my door. He never mentioned it, but I knew why. He was making sure I didn't do anything stupid in the dark hours when ghosts felt real. "Want to talk about it?" he asked one morning after a particularly bad night. "No." "Want to hit something?" "Yes." We went to the training area. He handed me boxing gloves. "Don't think, just hit." I hit the bag until my arms burned. I hit it until sweat stung my eyes. I hit it until I couldn't lift my hands anymore, and then I hit it some more. When I finally stopped, Javier was still there watching. "Feel better?" "No." "Good, you shouldn't." "Then why did you make me do it?" "Because feeling nothing would be worse." I pulled off the gloves with shaking hands. Does it ever stop, the replaying? "No, but you learn to live alongside it." "I don't want to learn that." "Too late, you already have." 6 months after the massacre, we received intelligence about a meeting, high-level cartel leadership gathering to discuss the ongoing hunt for the journalist's information. They still didn't know I had the notebook. They thought it was lost in the fire or hidden somewhere they hadn't searched or destroyed. "This is our chance," Ramos said. Gathered around the kitchen table, we hit them during the meeting, take out their command structure. "That's suicide," Gilberto protested. "They'll have 20 guards, maybe more." "Then we'll need a better plan." They spent hours strategizing, arguing, planning. I listened silent, the notebook open in front of me. One page kept drawing my attention, a detailed drawing of an eagle perched on a building I recognized, the old colonial mansion on the edge of Nuevo Laredo. My father had taken me there once, years ago, to show me the architecture. Beautiful things can hide ugly purposes, he'd said. Numbers hidden in the eagle's talons, coordinates, a date 2 weeks from now. The meeting, I said, interrupting the argument, it's not where you think. Everyone looked at me. My father documented it. I pointed to the eagle. This building, this date, they're meeting here. Javier moved closer, studying the drawing. How do you know? The eagle represents leadership. Papa used it 3 times in the notebook, always for top-level meetings. And look, I traced the architectural details. These windows, this door, he mapped the building. Torres whistled. Kid's right. If this is accurate, we have building layout, entry points, even sight lines. It's a trap, Gilberto said. Has to be. It's not a trap, I said quietly. It's my father's last gift. The room went silent. Javier closed the notebook carefully. We have 2 weeks to plan. If we do this, we do it right. No mistakes. No casualties on our side. What about the kid? Ramos asked. The kid stays here. No, my voice came out harder than I intended. I'm going. Miguel. They killed my parents because of this information. I'm not sitting in a safe room while you use it. I'm going. You're 12 years old. I'm old enough to kill. I'm old enough to fight. The words hung in the air, terrible and true. Javier looked at me for a long moment. Finally, you follow orders, every single one. No improvising, no heroics. You do exactly what I say when I say it. I will. Swear it, I swear. I was lying. We both knew it. But sometimes lies are the only way forward. The 2 weeks passed in intensive preparation. We studied the building from every angle, using my father's drawings as blueprint. We planned entry and exit routes. We gathered equipment, weapons, communications, body armor that was modified to fit my small frame. You're going to be our eyes, Javier explained. You'll position on the roof across the street with a radio. You spot threats, you call them out. That's it. No shooting, no direct engagement. What if something goes wrong? Then you run. You get to the extraction point and you survive. What about you? We're professionals, we'll be fine. Another lie, but I appreciated it. The night before the operation, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the common area, the notebook open in my lap, studying my father's drawings by lamplight. Ramos found me there around 3 a.m. You ready for tomorrow? He asked. I don't know. Good answer. Anyone who says they're ready for combat is either lying or hasn't seen enough of it. He sat beside me, his scarred face thoughtful. Can I ask you something? I said. Shoot. Why did you leave the federal police? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, I killed an innocent man. We raided the wrong house and I shot first, asked questions later. Turned out he was a schoolteacher, father of 3. Just reached for his wallet and I thought it was a gun. What happened? Officially, justified shooting cleared by internal affairs. Unofficially, I couldn't live with myself, so I left, found Javier, found the others, started trying to balance the scales. Can you balance them? No, but I can try. I looked at the drawings, at my father's careful lines and hidden truths. Tomorrow, I said, when we do this, if we succeed, does it balance anything? I don't know, kid, I hope so. The day of the operation arrived with cloudless skies and oppressive heat. We left the compound at dawn, splitting into 2 vehicles. Javier, Torres, and I in one. Ramos, Gilberto, and the others in the second. We'd rendezvous at the staging area 3 blocks from the target. I wore black tactical gear that was too big despite the modifications. Body armor pressed against my chest. A radio earpiece hummed in my ear. The weight of expectation sat heavier than any equipment. "Remember the plan," Javier said for the 10th time. "You're our lookout, nothing more." "I remember." "If shooting starts." "I know, run to extraction point Alpha, wait 30 minutes. If you don't come, head to point Beta." "And if we don't come to Beta?" I swallowed. "I use the emergency contacts, I disappear." "Good." We drove through Nuevo Laredo as the city woke up. Street vendors setting up stalls, workers heading to factories, normal people living normal lives, unaware that today might change everything. The colonial mansion sat on a hill overlooking the Rio Grande, elegant and incongruous among the industrial buildings surrounding it. My father's drawing had captured it perfectly. 3 stories, colonial architecture, a bell tower that dominated the skyline. That's where I'd be, in that bell tower, watching. We parked and split up. Javier escorted me to the church adjacent to the mansion. We entered through a side door, climbing narrow stairs in darkness. 3 minutes to position, Ramos's voice crackled over the radio. "Everyone check in." One by one, they reported, position secured, sight lines established, equipment functional. "Overwatch," Ramos said. "Overwatch in position," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. From the bell tower, I had a perfect view of the mansion. I could see the front entrance, the courtyard, the windows where shadows moved. "Target vehicles arriving," Torres reported. Through my binoculars, I watched 3 black SUVs pull into the courtyard. Men emerged, well-dressed, confident, the kind of men who ordered deaths over breakfast. I counted 12, then 15, then 20. 20 hostiles confirmed, I radioed, plus exterior guards. I count 6 on patrol. "Copy, stand by." The men entered the mansion. The meeting was beginning. Our window was narrow. Once they were inside, once the doors closed and guards were posted, extraction would be impossible. "All units," Javier's voice, calm despite what we were about to do. "On my mark, 3, 2, 1, execute." From my vantage point, I watched it unfold like a choreographed dance. Ramos and Gilberto took the front guards, silenced weapons, clean drops. The men went down without a sound. Torres and another operator breached the side entrance. Javier moved to the back. Everything was going according to plan. Then the shooting started. "Contact, we have contact," Gilberto's voice no longer calm. They knew we were coming. "Abort, abort." But it was too late. The mansion erupted with gunfire. I could see muzzle flashes through windows, hear the staccato of automatic weapons. "Overwatch," Javier's voice strained. "We need eyes, where are they?" I forced myself to focus, scanning the building through my binoculars. 6 hostiles on the 2nd floor, east side. 4 more moving to your position from the north corridor. "Copy, Torres, you have 4 incoming." The radio dissolved into chaos. Everyone talking at once. Calls for backup, screams of pain, the sounds of men dying. I watched Ramos go down in the courtyard, blood blooming across his shoulder. I watched Gilberto drag him toward cover, taking fire from 3 directions. I watched the mission fall apart. "Miguel," Javier's voice cut through the chaos, deadly calm. "You need to run now." "I can help now." I didn't move. I couldn't, because through my binoculars I saw something they didn't. A truck pulling up behind the mansion, men piling out, reinforcements. "Javier, you have reinforcements arriving, south side, at least a dozen." "Then we're done, everyone extract. Extraction point Alpha, move." I should have run then, should have followed orders. Instead, I thought about Mama dying while I hid under the bed. I thought about Papa's drawings, his legacy of bravery disguised as art. I thought about the man I'd killed, the surprise in his eyes. I thought about who I used to be, the boy who cried over marbles. And I thought about who I'd become. I made a choice. The bell tower had an old rope system for ringing the bells. It was frayed and probably unsafe, but it connected to a pulley system that ran across the street to the mansion's roof. I tied my rope to my harness, wrapped it around the pulley, and stepped into empty air. The slide across open space was the longest 5 seconds of my life. Below me, gunfire. Behind me, the safety I was abandoning. Ahead, probable death. I hit the mansion's roof harder than intended, rolled, came up with my weapon drawn. The rooftop access door was locked. I shot the lock, thank you Ramos for all those lessons, and descended into hell. The stairwell was smoke and shadows. I moved down one floor too, following the sound of fighting. My radio crackled. Miguel, if you can hear this, we're pinned in the south wing. Ramos is hit bad. We need static. South wing. I oriented myself using my father's drawings, which I'd memorized, left at the corridor, right at the portrait, straight through the library. I moved through the mansion like a ghost, small enough to hide behind furniture, quiet enough that the chaos covered my footsteps. In the library, I found them. Torres and Javier were pinned behind an overturned table, taking fire from 6 cartel soldiers. Ramos lay between them, bleeding badly. Gilberto was nowhere to be seen. The cartel soldiers were focused forward. They didn't see me in the doorway. I had surprise. I had position. I had 6 rounds in my pistol and 10 more in my pocket. I had a choice. I could run, save myself, survive to fight another day. Or I could be the person my father had raised me to be, the person who did what was necessary, even when it cost everything. I thought about Papa's words. Sometimes beauty is the only way to hide ugly truths. There was nothing beautiful about what I was about to do. I fired. The first shot took the rear guard in the leg, not fatal but disabling. He went down screaming. The second shot went wild, but it drew attention. The soldiers turned, confused, trying to locate the threat. It gave Javier and Torres the opening they needed. What followed was brutal and fast. The kind of violence that doesn't make it into stories because it's too ugly, too real. When it was over, 6 men lay dead or dying. And I stood there, gun still raised. 12 years old and covered in someone else's blood. Javier grabbed me, checked me for wounds. Are you hurt? I shook my head. I told you to run. I know. You could have died, I know. He pulled me against his chest, and I felt him shaking, rage or fear or relief, I couldn't tell. You stupid, brave, insane kid. I learned from the best. We got out barely. Ramos needed emergency surgery, which we performed in the back of the truck with a first aid kit and prayer. Gilberto had taken a round to the chest, but his armor saved him. The mission was a disaster. We'd killed 8 cartel members, maybe 10, but the leadership escaped. The element of surprise was gone. They knew someone was hunting them with inside information. They'd be coming for us now, all of us. Back at the compound, while Torres stitched Ramos's shoulder and Gilberto coughed up blood, Javier pulled me aside. What you did today. I know I disobeyed orders. You saved our lives. I also destroyed any chance we had of staying hidden. Yes. We stood there in the aftermath, 2 people who'd chosen violence and were living with the consequences. What happens now? I asked. Now we finish it. We use every page of that notebook. We burn their operation to the ground, and we make sure your parents didn't die for nothing. Even if it kills us. Especially if it kills us. Part 8, The Price of Justice. The retaliation came 3 days later. They hit the compound at dawn, when the light was uncertain, and guards were tired from night watch. 20 men, maybe more, with automatic weapons and grenades and all the resources of a criminal empire that stretched across borders. We'd known they were coming. We'd prepared. but preparation only goes so far when you're outnumbered 4-1. "Everyone to defensive positions," Ramos shouted, still bandaged but moving, his face grim with certainty. This was it, the last stand. I'd been assigned to the panic room with emergency supplies and escape routes. Instead, I grabbed my weapon and headed for my position, a second-floor window with good sight lines and cover. "Miguel," Javier's voice behind me, "get to the safe room." No. That wasn't a request. None of this was a request. I turned to face him. "They're here because of me, because of my father's notebook. I'm not hiding while you die protecting it." The first explosion cut off his response. The outer wall, they were breaching. What followed was chaos measured in heartbeats. Gunfire and smoke and men shouting orders. I fired at shadows, at muzzle flashes, at anything that moved beyond our perimeter. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. Everything Ramos had taught me, everything I'd learned in 7 months of accelerated warfare came together. I wasn't the crying boy who'd lost a marble anymore. I wasn't even the terrified kid who'd crawled through his mother's blood. I was something else now, something harder, something capable of terrible things. A cartel soldier made it to the second floor. He kicked in the door to my room. I shot him twice before he could raise his weapon. He fell backward and I felt nothing. That's what scared me most, the absence of feeling. Outside, the battle raged. I could hear Torres on the radio coordinating defense, Gilberto calling out positions, Ramos, despite his injury, holding the south entrance. And Javier, always Javier, his voice calm in the storm, directing, protecting, leading. Then we're being flanked, east side. I moved to the window, saw 3 men approaching through our blind spot. They'd reach the wall in seconds. I could call it in, let someone else handle it. Or I could act. I climbed out the window onto the narrow ledge, 20 feet below hard ground. Don't look down, don't think. Move. I traversed the ledge to where it connected with the outer wall. The cartel soldiers were focused on their approach, not on the 12-year-old boy above them. I dropped a smoke grenade I'd stolen from supplies. It landed between them, detonating with a hiss. In the confusion, I dropped down, landing wrong, my ankle screaming, and opened fire. 2 went down. The third turned, saw me, raised his weapon. Javier came around the corner and put 3 rounds center mass. The soldier dropped. Javier stared at me, equal parts fury and horror. "What are you doing?" "My job." "Your job is to survive." "No, my job is to fight." The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, 12 cartel soldiers were dead, 6 wounded and captured. On our side, Torres had a through-and-through in his thigh. Gilberto's old chest wound had reopened. Ramos was unconscious from blood loss. And me, my ankle was sprained, my hands were shaking from adrenaline dump, and I'd killed 3 more people. "We can't stay here," Javier said, surveying the damage. "They'll send more, bigger force. We've got maybe 12 hours. "Then we run," Gilberto said. "Run where? They know who we are now, they'll find us." "So what's the alternative?" Silence, the question hung unanswered. I looked at the notebook which I'd kept with me through the entire battle. My father's legacy, my mother's death, my transformation from innocent to instrument. "We finish it," I said quietly. Everyone looked at me. "The notebook, we use it, all of it. We send it to every news organization, every federal agency, every international body that will listen. We make my father's work public. Once it's out there, they can't kill us to hide it anymore." "They'll kill us for revenge," Torres pointed out. "Maybe, but at least it will mean something." Javier studied me with those stone-colored eyes. "You understand what you're proposing. Once we do this, there's no taking it back. No normal life, no peace. They'll hunt us forever." "They're already hunting us. At least this way my parents' deaths accomplish something. The others exchanged glances. "The kid's right," Ramos said weakly from his stretcher. "We're dead men walking anyway. Might as well make it count." "I know people," Gilberto offered. "Journalists who aren't bought. Some work for international papers. They're harder to threaten." "And I have contacts in the American DEA," Javier added. "They've been trying to build a case against the Zetas for years. This would give them everything they need." "How long to copy and distribute the notebook?" Torres asked. 6 hours if we move fast." "Then we have 6 hours to hold this position." We worked through exhaustion and pain. Gilberto scanned every page of the notebook, creating digital copies. Torres and I reinforced our defenses, dragging bodies and fortifying weak points with whatever we could find. Javier made calls on encrypted lines, reaching out to everyone who might use this information. I sat with Ramos while he drifted in and out of consciousness. "Hey kid," he muttered at one point, "you did good today." "I got people killed." "No, they got themselves killed when they chose this life. You just survived it." "Is that what we're doing, surviving?" His scarred face creased into something like a smile. "We're doing more than that. We're making sure the next kid doesn't have to." "Will there be a next kid?" "There's always a next kid. That's why we fight." He closed his eyes, and for a terrible moment I thought he was gone. Then his chest rose and fell, and I could breathe again. The copies went out as dawn approached. Digital files encrypted and distributed to 17 different news organizations across 3 countries. Physical copies sent to the FBI, Mexican federal authorities, and even the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. By sunrise, my father's work was everywhere. The first news alert came through at 6:47 a.m. Massive cartel documentation leaked. Journalists' secret DRAWINGS exposed drug ROUTES. By 7:15, it was international news. By 8:00, the Mexican government had issued a statement. By 9:00, arrest warrants were being issued. We watched it unfold on a laptop, huddled in the compound that might become our tomb. "It's working," Gilberto said, wonder in his voice. "Carlos's information, it's actually working." "Names are being named," Torres read from the screen. "Politicians, police chiefs, military officers. Jesus, this goes all the way to the governor's office." "What about us?" I asked. "Are we mentioned?" "Not by name," Javier said. "The journalists are protecting their sources, but the cartel will know. They'll figure it out." "Let them figure it out," I said. "We're not hiding anymore." They came at noon. Not a tactical assault this time, something worse. A convoy of vehicles appeared on the road leading to our compound. They stopped at a distance, too far for effective fire, close enough to be seen. A man emerged from the lead vehicle. Even at this distance, I could tell he was someone important, the way others deferred to him, the confidence in his posture. He was holding something, a white flag. "They want to talk," Torres said, disbelieving. "It's a trap," Gilberto insisted. "Maybe," Javier said, "but let's hear what they have to say." He walked out alone, hands visible and empty. I watched through binoculars, my heart in my throat. The cartel leader, I'd later learn his name was Diego Vargas, a man responsible for hundreds of deaths, spoke for 5 minutes. Javier listened, his face unreadable. When Javier returned, he was pale. "What did he say?" Ramos asked. "He offered us a deal. We stop cooperating with authorities, we disappear, they let us live." "That's it. That's it. And if we refuse?" He was very clear about what happens if we refuse. We sat in silence, weighing impossible choices. "I say we fight," Torres said. "We've come this far." "We're out of ammunition," Gilberto countered. "Half of us are wounded. Ramos needs a hospital. If we fight, we die." "If we run, we die eventually anyway," Torres argued. They all turned to me. The 12-year-old boy who'd started this. The orphan with a notebook full of his father's final gift. "What do you think, Miguel?" Javier asked. I thought about Mama telling me to hide, to run to survive. I thought about Papa drawing beauty to hide truth, choosing courage over safety. I thought about the boy I used to be, who believed the world was good. And I thought about the person I'd become, hard and capable and forever changed. "I think," I said slowly, "that my father didn't die so I could spend my life hiding. I think my mother didn't take a bullet so I could make deals with her killers. I think we finish what we started." "Even if it kills us?" Gilberto asked. "My parents are already dead. Ramos might be dying. We're all marked. But the information is out there now. The arrests are happening. The corruption is being exposed. If we die." My voice cracked and I forced it steady. "If we die, at least we die for something." Javier's mouth quirked into something that might have been pride. "Kid's got a point." "So we tell Vargas to go to hell?" Torres asked. "In the most professional way possible," Javier agreed. Javier walked back out to deliver our answer. I watched through the binoculars as he spoke to Vargas. The cartel leader's body language shifted from confident to rigid. Then Vargas pulled his weapon and shot Javier 3 times. Time stopped. I watched Javier fall, watched Vargas stand over him, watched him fire one more time execution style. Then Vargas looked directly at our compound, directly at where I stood, though he couldn't possibly see me. And he smiled. Javier. I was running before I knew I was moving, gun in hand, tactical sense abandoned. Torres caught me before I made it out the door. "He's gone, Miguel, he's gone." "Let me go." "He's gone, and if you go out there you'll be dead too, and everything will be for nothing." I fought him, screaming, crying, a 12-year-old boy again, all the hard edges stripped away by grief. Outside, Vargas got in his vehicle. The convoy drove away. They'd made their statement. Part 9, The Reckoning. We buried Javier at dawn in the hills behind the compound, with a view of the sunrise he'd never see again. There was no priest, no ceremony, just men who'd fought together standing around a grave they dug with their own hands. "He was the best of us," Ramos said, leaning heavily on Torres. "He could have walked away a dozen times, could have taken the money the easy way out, but he chose to stand, chose to fight, chose to protect a kid he barely knew because it was the right thing to do." He looked at me. "Your father would have been proud of the man Javier became, and Javier would have been proud of the man you're becoming." I didn't feel like a man. I felt like a broken boy standing at the edge of an abyss. But I stood anyway. "What now?" Gilberto asked. "Javier was our leader, our strategist." "Now we honor what he died for," Torres said. "The information is out. Arrests are happening. We see it through." "How?" I asked. "Vargas won't stop until we're all dead." "Then we don't wait for him to come to us," Torres replied. "We go to him." The suggestion hung in the air, audacious and insane. "That's suicide," Gilberto said. "Staying here is suicide too. At least this way we choose the battlefield." They argued for hours while I sat beside Javier's grave, the notebook open in my lap. My father's drawings, my mother's sacrifice, Javier's death. All of it leading to this moment. I traced a drawing of a serpent coiled around coordinates that I now recognized as Vargas's primary compound. A fortress outside Monterrey, where he conducted business behind walls and guards, and the protection of corrupt officials. My father had documented it, every detail, every weakness. He'd given us a map to our enemy's heart. "I know where Vargas lives," I said, interrupting their argument, "and I know how to get inside." They stared at me. "Your father documented his compound?" Torres asked. I showed them the pages. Not just documented, analyzed. Look, delivery schedules, guard rotations, weak points in the security system. Papa was thorough. This is detailed intelligence, Ramos said, studying the drawings. This is everything we'd need. It's also a death trap, Gilberto insisted. Even with this information, we're talking about assaulting a fortress with 4 wounded men and a child. 3 men, I corrected. Ramos can't fight, and I'm not a child anymore. No one argued with that assessment. Even 3, Gilberto continued, against Vargas's entire operation. We don't fight his entire operation, Torres interrupted, his eyes lighting up with the kind of dangerous idea that gets people killed. We extract him, one target, surgical strike. And do what with him? Deliver him to the authorities. Let him face justice for what he's done. The authorities are corrupt. Not all of them, not anymore. The leaks have changed things. There are federals who want to make arrests, who want to be on the right side of history. We give them Vargas, we give them the biggest collar of their careers. It was crazy, impossible, the kind of plan that required everything to go perfectly when nothing ever went perfectly. I'm in, I said. Miguel, Ramos began. He killed Javier. He killed my parents. He's killed hundreds, maybe thousands. If there's even a chance we can stop him, we have to take it. The kid's right, Torres said. We've come this far, we finish it. Gilberto looked between us, weighing survival against purpose. Finally, he sighed. I must be insane, but I'm in too. We spent 3 days planning, using my father's drawings as blueprint. 3 days for our wounds to heal enough to move. 3 days to gather equipment, make contacts, and prepare for what would likely be our last mission. Ramos worked the communications, reaching out to the few federal agents he trusted, setting up the handoff, ensuring that if we somehow succeeded, Vargas would actually face justice. On the night before we left, he called me aside. You don't have to do this, he said. You're 12 years old. You've already done more than anyone should ask. If you want to walk away, use the money we've saved, disappear into a new life. No one would blame you. Would you, I asked, walk away? He smiled, sad and knowing. No, but I'm a broken old man with nothing left to lose. You've got your whole life ahead of you. No, I don't. The boy I was, Miguel, who cried over marbles, he died under that bed with my mother. I don't know who I am now, but I know I can't live with myself if I don't see this through. That's the answer I expected. Just wanted to give you the choice. Thank you. He pulled me into a hug, the first real physical affection I'd received since my mother died. I let myself be small again, just for a moment, just long enough to remember what it felt like to be held by someone who cared. Then I pulled away and became the person this world had shaped me into. Vargas's compound was a converted hacienda surrounded by 20-foot walls, guard towers, and enough firepower to hold off a small army, which is exactly what we were not. We approached at 2 a.m. using delivery credentials that Gilberto had acquired through contacts and bribery. A produce truck, 3 men making a scheduled drop-off, nothing suspicious. I was hidden in the back, among crates of vegetables, small enough to fit where they couldn't see me. The gate guards checked the truck with bored efficiency. Papers were in order, credentials checked out. They waved us through. We were inside. Phase 1 complete, Torres murmured into his radio, proceeding to Phase 2. Phase 2 was getting me into the main house. According to my father's drawings, there was a service entrance used by kitchen staff that connected to the delivery bay. The truck parked. Torres and Gilberto started unloading crates. I slipped out between shipments, small and quick, just another shadow in a place full of shadows. The service entrance was exactly where the drawing indicated, unlocked, because who expected threats from inside the compound? I was in. The house was opulent in the way of men who made their fortunes from human suffering. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than my entire childhood. I moved through it like a ghost, following the layout my father had mapped. Second floor, third door on the left, Vargas's private office. A guard stood outside. I waited, pressed into an alcove, my heart hammering so loud I was sure he'd hear it. The guard checked his phone, distracted. I moved. I'd learned from Ramos, when you have to kill quietly, you commit completely. No hesitation, no mercy. The guard went down silently, my knife finding the gap between his vertebrae that Ramos had shown me. He died without knowing who killed him. I was 13 years old, and I just committed my 7th murder. The number should have horrified me. Instead, it was just a fact, like my height or eye color, something I carried. I opened the office door. Vargas sat at his desk, reading by lamplight. He looked up, saw me, and for one moment his face showed genuine surprise. "You're the journalist's son," he said, "the boy everyone's been hunting." "My name is Miguel Santos," I replied, raising my weapon with both hands to keep it steady. "And you killed my parents." "I've killed a lot of people's parents. You'll have to be more specific." The casual cruelty of it, the dismissal of my entire world as just another statistic, made my finger tighten on the trigger. "Don't," Vargas said, his voice calm. "You shoot me, every guard in this compound descends on you. You might escape, probably won't. Either way, I'm dead and you've gained nothing. Justice isn't nothing." "Justice?" he laughed. "Is that what you think this is? Your father was an idealist who didn't understand how the world works. I'm a businessman, I provide a service. If I don't, someone else will. Killing me changes nothing." The arrests say otherwise. For the first time, his composure cracked. Temporary setbacks. Some corrupt officials go to prison, new ones take their place. The system is bigger than your father's little drawings. Maybe, but you'll be in prison to watch it. "You're not going to shoot me. You're a child playing at war." "I stopped being a child 7 months ago." I pulled a taser from my pocket, borrowed from Ramos, modified for higher voltage. I fired. Vargas convulsed, toppled from his chair. "Torres, I have the package," I radioed, bringing him out. Getting out was harder than getting in. We'd planned for this. Torres and Gilberto staged a diversion, a small explosive at the eastern wall that drew guards like moths to flame. I dragged Vargas, unconscious, zip-tied and remarkably heavy for someone so lean, through the service corridors. My arms burned. My injured ankle screamed with every step. Alarms began to wail. They'd found the dead guard. "Miguel, you need to move faster," Gilberto's voice in my ear, urgent. "I'm trying." A guard rounded the corner ahead of me. His eyes widened. His hand went to his weapon. I dropped Vargas and fired first. The guard fell. 8. I picked up Vargas again and kept moving. The delivery truck was still in the bay, miraculously. Torres and Gilberto were already inside, engine running. "Come on," Torres shouted. I half-dragged, half-carried Vargas the last 20 meters, threw him in the back, climbed in after him. G.O. The truck lurched forward. Behind us, guards emerged from the house, firing. Bullets punched through the truck's thin walls. Gilberto cried out, hit in the shoulder. Torres drove like a madman, crashing through the gate that was just starting to close, metal screaming, sparks flying. We were out. We made it 3 kilometers before the engine gave out, smoking and dying. "Transfer vehicles," Torres shouted. Ramos was waiting with a van at the predetermined location. We loaded Vargas, still unconscious, and ourselves into it. "Everyone okay?" Ramos asked. "Define okay," Gilberto muttered, pressing his hand to his bleeding shoulder. "We're alive," I said. "That counts." We drove to the handoff location, a checkpoint manned by federals who'd been vetted by Ramos's contacts, real police, the kind who actually cared about justice. They took Vargas into custody. They took statements. They looked at us, 3 wounded men and a 12-year-old boy with expressions that mixed respect and horror. The boy, one of them said to Ramos, he was part of this. The boy is the reason we're all here, Ramos replied. His father started this, he finished it. Vargas went to trial. His lawyers fought, but my father's documentation was too thorough, too detailed. He was sentenced to 47 years in federal prison. 312 arrests followed from the leaked information. 2 governors resigned. Dozens of police officers were fired or imprisoned. The Zetas' northern operations were crippled. It wouldn't last forever. Torres had been right about that. New criminals would rise. New corruption would take root. But for a moment, for one brief shining moment, justice had prevailed. I testified at Vargas's trial. The prosecutor asked me to describe what happened the day my parents died. I told the truth, all of it. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. The judge, an old woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much, looked at me for a long moment. "Miguel Santos," she said, "what happened to you should not happen to any child. What you've survived, what you've done, the man you've been forced to become, it's not fair. It's not right, but it is real, and because of you. Because of your father's courage and your mother's sacrifice and your determination to see justice done, hundreds of lives will be saved. Thousands, perhaps." She paused. "I know that doesn't bring your parents back. I know it doesn't erase what you've experienced, but I want you to know that it matters. What you've done matters." I nodded, not trusting my voice. After the trial, Ramos took guardianship of me. Legal guardianship, though both of us knew I hadn't needed a guardian in months. The compound became my home. Torres and Gilberto remained. Others joined, veterans, former police, people who wanted to fight corruption but couldn't do it through official channels. We became something between vigilantes and a private military company. We took on cases the authorities couldn't or wouldn't handle. We protected people who had nowhere else to turn. I was 13 when I led my first operation. 14 when I took a bullet for the first time. 15 when I killed my 20th man and stopped counting. The boy who cried over marbles was long dead. In his place was someone harder, colder, more capable. But sometimes, late at night, I'd open my father's notebook, the original, not the copies, and look at his drawings. The hummingbird with coordinates hidden in its wings. The peacock with numbers in its tail. The eagle that had led us to Vargas. My father had turned beauty into a weapon. He'd hidden truth in art. And he'd raised a son who understood that sometimes the only way to fight monsters was to become something monstrous yourself. I'd lost my innocence, my childhood, my family, everything that made me who I was supposed to be. But I'd gained something too, purpose, direction, the knowledge that I could survive anything. I wasn't sure if that was a fair trade. I wasn't sure if it mattered. I'm 17 now, writing this in a safe house in Texas, waiting for the next mission. Ramos is getting old. Torres was killed last year in an operation gone wrong. Gilberto left to try civilian life. He sends postcards sometimes from a beach town where he runs a restaurant. New people have joined, younger people, some not much older than I am. They look at me the way I used to look at Javier, as someone who knows the way through darkness. I try to be worthy of that look. Sometimes I wonder what my parents would think of me now. Would they be proud of the person I've become, or horrified? I think about Mama making me sandwiches shaped like hearts, about Papa drawing galaxies into marbles, about the simple, good life we had before everything burned. That life feels like a story I heard once, like it happened to someone else. Because it did, in a way. It happened to Miguel Santos, age 11, who believed the world was good. I'm someone different now, someone harder, someone who's killed men and led operations and made choices that cost lives. But I'm also my father's son, and I'm my mother's legacy. And every person we've saved, every operation we've completed, every small victory against the darkness, that's them living through me. It's not the life they wanted for me, but it's the life their sacrifice created. And I'll honor it the only way I know how, by continuing to fight, by refusing to hide, by being the kind of person who stands when it's easier to run. My name is Miguel Santos. I'm 17 years old. I've killed more people than I can count, saved more lives than I can remember, and lived through things that should have destroyed me. I'm not a hero. Heroes are people in stories, people who can afford the luxury of pure motivations and clear moral lines. I'm just someone who survived, who chose to make that survival mean something. And in a world of monsters, sometimes that's enough.